1 minute to go. It's time. Hello, everyone. Let me know when you can see this and hear everything. Hi. Okay, Roosevelt's there. Hi, Roosevelt. Mhm. Good afternoon. Hi, Adrian. Everything's fine. Hello, Luisa. Sardo. Hello. Excellent audio. Great. How's it going? All's good. Hello. Paulo dos Ferros, Rio Grande do Norte. Hello. How was Carnival? The break. How was it? Uruguay. Hi, Walter. Welcome, everyone. Olá, Pozzi, Carlos, hi, Blumenau, Sorocaba. That's nice. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Bruno Albuquerque, and today we will be talking about writing. No carnival in your city, just rest in your parents. Yeah. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about writing for students. So the goal of this webinar is to better equip us teachers to deal with writing in class from the perspective of an approach called the process genre approach. Um, most of this webinar, most of this webinar is based on Isabella Villas Boas' book. I should have it here somewhere here. Most of this webinar is based on this book, Teaching EFL Writing by Isabella Villas Boas. And it is a result of my last lesson for Delta Module 2. I wrote an article and a lesson plan, and I taught this lesson to a group of A1 learners. So this is a bit of Delta. Yeah. Janaki, this is a fantastic book. You're going to love it. It's a short book, but it's densely packed with high quality information. It's very, very straightforward. You're going to love it. I think it's one of the best ELT books I have read. Definitely the best one on the topic, and probably one of my top three, generally speaking. Yeah. So, to explain a little bit about the context of this group and this lesson that we're analyzing today, this group of students, they are volunteer students. They don't pay for the course. They were students of mine during Delta Module 2, and they are still my students up to today. They are A1 learners. Some of them have had English classes before having classes with me, but most of them haven't. So it really is a starter group, and this was probably our 20th to 25th lesson together. Before this class focused on writing, we dealt with some of the vocabulary that they will need to talk about food and cooking and recipes. They have read the recipe in a reading class before, um, and they are fantastic young adults. I love them with all my heart. They're great kids. They would behave amazingly on the days that the tutors were there to observe the classes. So I owe a big deal of my module to them. I'm very, very thankful. Um, so I decided to start this webinar with a lesson walkthrough, in which you will be able to see the framework in action, right? So that it's not very theoretical. We will get to the theoretical part at the end for those who enjoy it, but we'll focus on the practice of the lesson. I began this class by asking students if they liked cooking if they enjoyed cooking, what they could cook, what they liked cooking. And then this activity was done in trios, like very small groups, and they could answer very simply, "No, I like this, I like that, I don't like cooking, I like pasta, I like noodles, I like hot dogs, I like baking cakes." And they had this conversation amongst themselves, and then I elicited from them what they talked about and wrote some of the words on the board. Some of these words were food, some of them were ingredients, some of them were even words related to the cooking itself, like chopping and etc. Then I showed them. I didn't hand it to them. I showed them holding it up, this sheet. And don't worry if the screen is small and you cannot read everything that is there. Don't worry, because the idea is I wanted students to look at the sheet and answer what kind of text this was, right? I got this from Google and then I edited so that it fit the page. Um, it was a cooking website. And I showed this to them and asked, "What is this?" And they all replied, "It's a recipe." And I was like, "Okay, but how do you know that this is a recipe?" Just by looking at it and not even reading, because from the distance I was showing the page, they could not read it. And then they started mentioning some of the elements of the genre, some of the characteristics of the genre. So they mentioned, teacher, there's a picture of cookies. I can see ingredients. I can see steps. I can see prep time. And this is what I wanted them to do to get started on this genre analysis, to start finding out the characteristics of the genre, right? Of a recipe. Yes, I was trying to get uh, some of this from them, from their schemata and background experience. Did they answer your question in English? Some questions, some of the questions, yes. They said there's a picture of cookies, ingredients, and then they would answer in very short sentences, right? Uh, Teacher, ingredients, teacher, steps, teacher, pictures, teacher, prep time, right? Cookies, yeah. Um, but I wanted them to look at the picture, at the recipe, and try to get some of the genre. But then, because this was just, let's say, an introduction to the genre analysis came afterwards. And I use this hideous acronym. Every time I talk about writing, I try to come up with a better acronym, and this is the best one I got so far. Uh, CalCogs, which helps me to remember everything I have to analyze in a genre analysis moment. So I would ask them questions as if concept checking questions, very short questions, to get the answers to these. This is one of the deliverables of this webinar. So maybe if you want to forget everything that you hear here, this is one of the key points. So CalCogs begins with communicative purpose. What is the goal of writing this text? What does the author want to communicate with this text? Because writing is supposed to be communicative, just as speaking is, right? So I asked them, what's the objective of a recipe? And some answered in Portuguese, some answered in English, to teach cooking to someone, to help someone cook something, right? I think this is question number one. Question two, audience. Who are you writing this to? Who reads recipes, right? And they answered people who like cooking, people who have to cook. Some of them answered chefs, and I was in two minds about that because I don't think chefs would read a recipe for chocolate chip cookies, but still, okay, so people involved in cooking or interested in cooking. Then we have layout, and this is the easiest one in my opinion, because layout is very visual, right? So layout is what the text looks like on the page or on the web or where it lives, right? So the question here would be, what does it look like on the paper? Yeah. And then they would mention there's a picture, there's a list of ingredients, there's a list of steps, there is prep time, there is serving, right? So the physical organization of the elements on the page. Then content. So what is it? Hello, Beatriz. What is it that is in the layout, right? So the layout is how you organize what elements you have on the page, and then content is the what being organized in the page, right? And then content is ingredients, steps, right? Cooking instructions, quantities, yeah. Then organization, where this content goes, right? So sometimes it goes in paragraphs, not in a recipe, but it can be organized in paragraphs, maybe a first paragraph of introduction, and then two body paragraphs with different opinions, etc. But for a recipe, you have uh, ingredients usually first, and then steps are organized in one, two, three, four, five, right? Then grammar and lexis. So, what kind of grammar and what kind of vocabulary is used in this text, in this genre? So, you get grammar, for example, you have very short imperative sentences. Hi, Karin. You have very short imperative sentences, right? So, cut this, add this, mix this, right? So, imperative, very short, very simple sentences. And Lexis, you have, well, uh, action verbs for doing the food. You have containers such as cups, glasses, teaspoon, tablespoon, pinch, or um, right. And as a matter of style, as if it's formal, if it's informal, or if it's neutral, right? Recipes tend to be rather neutral. They're not very formal, not very informal. I don't think there should be a very strong mention there on style. And one thing I realized about recipes while analyzing the genre is look at the ingredients table. See if you find something that um, well, that catches your attention in the ingredients list. Oh wow, lots of things that caught your attention. The thing that caught my attention is that uh, the the preposition of is not used. So it's 2 cups flour, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 1 cup butter, 1 cup sugar, right? And then the first recipe I analyzed, I was like, huh, interesting. Maybe it's a mistake. And then I looked at another and another and another, and none of them use the of preposition, right? It's very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting for English teachers, maybe. The general public wouldn't be as amused as us, I believe. And then after carrying out this genre analysis with simple questions that they could answer either in English as ideal, but also some in Portuguese because the focus here is genre analysis and understanding um, the text. I asked them to draw a mind map of a recipe that they know or that they think they know how to cook. The mind map began on a blank page with the name of the dish in the center of the page. And then I asked them to draw bubbles around with the ingredients and then connecting to the ingredients the quantities or the containers for these ingredients and I'm sorry, and connecting then the ingredients and the quantities to each other, the action verbs for cooking. And then when they were done, we had something like this. I made this one for the presentation. They did it on paper, so but this was the idea, and this is what they built, right? So a mind map, like a visual representation of the recipe, right? And then we had a short speaking activity in which they would teach uh, their partners in pairs their recipe, right? So, oh, it's a carrot cake. You need chocolate, baking powder, flour, and eggs. You need 100 grams of chocolate. You need a teaspoon of baking powder. You need, and then mix chocolate and baking powder, mix carrots and flour and eggs to talk about their their recipes because even though it's a writing class, I still wanted students to speak during the lesson so as not to be dull, right? Um, After they produced the mind map, it was time to write the first draft, right? So they had the ideas together here. They had a plan for the text because you have everything here. You have the food, you have the ingredients, the quantities, the action verbs. They analyzed the what's the name of the thing? The genre, and now they're ready to write their first drafts. Before getting to their first drafts, I showed them a checklist of a good recipe. And then they read what you needed to have in a recipe. I took this away and they wrote their first draft. They wrote their first drafts in around 15 minutes in class. Uh, Question word, auxiliary verb, subject, main verb, question verb, auxiliary verb. I'm not familiar with that, Roosevelt. I'm sorry. So they wrote their. Oh no, this is not a grammar class. We didn't talk about grammar in this lesson. This was very specifically a writing focused lesson. Um, and then they wrote their first drafts. They shared their drafts with their peers, and the peers used this checklist to assess, to peer review, to give peer feedback to their colleagues. And this is where the lesson ended. They read each one's text, they checked the boxes, they gave feedback, and that was it. For the other class, I collected the texts, uh, gave my feedback on the genre, on grammar and vocabulary and mechanics, etc., and then gave it back to them. They rewrote the text, edited, and then got more feedback from me at the end. Yeah. Can we decompress and see what happened here? Yeah, I think we should explore this. Um, what we did was we had a lead in at first, asking students to answer a couple questions on cooking in pairs or in trios. I wanted students to activate their background knowledge, to get involved in the lesson, to engage with the topic. And I decided to use an active lead in. Active meaning that all students were active while activating this background knowledge, this schemata, because they were doing in pairs. They were doing it in pairs. So I believe it's always a better idea to have a lead in which students are working in pairs, in trios, so that they're all active and not only reporting to you or to me in this case. Then we had a moment to read the the recipe just for the gist of it. What's this? It's a recipe. Okay, how do you know? Oh, there's this, there's this, there's that. And then we went to genre analysis, the cow cogs thing, asking questions, trying to get this from students. The simpler the questions, the better. uh, we had a moment to generate ideas and plan with the mind map. We had the first draft based on a checklist. After they wrote their first draft, they got peer feedback from each other. And then at home, they edited the text, um, got feedback from the teacher, revised or edited their texts, and then published in a blog that they created for the group. The difference here in editing and revising is that usually editing comes first because you're dealing with the genre and the ideas in editing, right? So perhaps students have to change the layout of the text. So the changes are very drastic, right? Maybe they're missing the ingredients. Maybe they're missing steps. Maybe they're missing prep time or serving. And then the changes that they do after the peer feedback are usually more drastic. Yeah. And then they have teacher feedback, and then revising. It's usually that nitpicking that we do. It's like, look at this spelling, look at this grammar, check this word, check this or check that. Because usually after the first draft, focused on the genre and the ideas on the text, what students have to do after teacher feedback is checking small details here and there, because the text is already in the genre and with the right information, in the right contents, the right style, the correct communicative purpose, the right layout, the right organization. So it's just small things here and there. And then I think publishing is very interesting, very important, so that they feel that they've done something. I've used this to write book reviews and video game reviews on Google. You can super do that. And students love having their texts published. And this was it. This is the lesson. And yes, I can share the presentation. Can you send me an email asking for it? Let me, uh, gmail.com. Yes, here. Just send me an email and I'll send you the PDF. Um, what are the principles behind this? And as I mentioned, this is from Villas Boas and Barcaoy. The principles behind this are that writing should be communicative. I feel that most of the times that students are not, um, I think most of the times it's um, very ambitious. Some of the times that students are not motivated to write is because the writing is not communicative. For example, um, if I ask my students to write a paragraph uh, about pandas, that's not very communicative. There is no communicative purpose, right? What is it that the students are communicating with this text? What is the genre of this? What does it look like? Who's the audience? Who is going to read this? What does it look like? So I think that this is another key point here of using the process genre approach to get students to write. It's because they're writing real, like actual pieces of writing that people write outside of the classroom. So I believe so, Sarah. I think we're streaming on YouTube, so it's probably going to be there. So making writing communicative by using a genre that, well, a genre that exists is repetitive, because if it doesn't exist, it's not a genre. But using a real life genre will make is bound to make writing classes more interesting, more communicative, more engaging. Right? There's a purpose for writing, Jailson. There is a layout. There's a target audience. There is something that I want to affect on my reader based on the genre and based on what I want to on what I'm writing. Um, After I decided to start a blog, I have just fallen head over heels in love with writing, because when you start writing to an audience with a communicative purpose, it's much more fun. It's much more fun. It's purposeful. The production, right? Process over product. Yes, Anna. I'm sorry. So writing is the mind map. No, writing is the recipe, Anna. They what they wrote after the mind map. So we had the mind map, and then they wrote a recipe. So they wrote a recipe just like the cookies, using the ideas that they drew on the mind map. They wrote a recipe. Hmm. Yeah. Process over product. Isabella mentions that uh, when dealing with the process genre approach, the process of writing is very important. It's the most important, but the product is also very important. We're focusing here on the process of writing and how we analyze a genre, how we generate ideas, how we draft, how we edit, how we peer assess and give peer feedback, how we revise, how we publish. This is the main focus. But the product, the final recipe, is also important, because this is what we're publishing, right? So it has to, the product is also valid, is also important. Genre analysis is key, because everything that we write has to not follows a genre, right? I feel that sometimes, and back to the point of paragraphs and maybe 5 paragraph essays not being exciting to write. It's because oh, no one. I know, it's just it's a question. It's fine. um and I think the key thing of using a genre is that it feels like real life writing. For example, think about the 5 paragraph essay that students write in schools. Where else do we see 5 paragraph essays if not in school? And students notice that, and writing gets this feeling that I'm writing a piece of text for my teacher to assess me. So my teacher is actually testing my writing skills, because I will most likely not write a 5 paragraph essay anywhere after we leave school. So dealing with the other genres, the genres that are more, you can write poems, you can write cover letters, you can write book reviews, game reviews, recipes, short stories, comic strips, and anything else like news reports and anything else that is related to real life writing, blog posts, uh, articles for magazines. Right? This focus on sub skills, a focus on sub skills leads to development, is connected to the other one. Learners should be taught the processes and strategies that proficient writers employ. And I think this is very powerful. They should be taught the processes and the strategies that proficient writers employ. So, what we're actually doing here is we're teaching students to mimic and employ the strategies that good writers employ. We're taking students through a phase of activating what they already know on the topic. We take them through the process of generating ideas and putting it together, maybe in a visual way, or sometimes you have things on the wall or maybe on the board, or you take random notes on your notebook with the ideas, maybe some sentences you want to use, and then you analyze the kind of text that you want to produce, the genre you want to produce, so that you know exactly how it is supposed to feel. There is this silly thing called the duck test, which says if it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, if it swims like a duck, if it waddles like a duck, if it swims like a duck, it's probably a duck. So the idea of the genre approach is to conduct this duck test on a text to make sure that the text that you're producing with your ideas and your communicative purpose feels like and looks like other texts of the same genre so that it's easily perceptible by anyone looking at it. Because if you write in a genre that everybody can recognize, part of your idea, part of your communicative purpose is already conveyed. Part of the communication is already ongoing, right? And a piece of information that shocked me on Bakwai is that uh, proficient writers spend 80% more time on the planning phase when compared to novice writers. Novice writers are much more likely to sit down and write, whereas proficient writers spend 80% more time planning the text, gathering ideas, organizing the ideas, and deciding how these ideas will come to fruition. And I think it begs the question as we reach the end of this conversation today, um, what about artificial intelligence? Uh, Chat GPT is here. Chat GPT can produce texts. Chat GPT, if you ask a question and you ask for a 200 word text on Barack Obama, mentioning his accomplishments and the critique to his government, whatever, ChatGPT will write it for you. But there is one thing that ChatGPT doesn't do that we're doing, which is thinking. I believe that teaching writing is actually teaching thinking. You're teaching students to organize thoughts logically and clearly so that anyone reading what they wrote will understand and will feel like part of the conversation. Perhaps in the future, and I'm no innovation expert, um, I don't know where artificial intelligence will take us, but what I know is that teachers will never be replaced by machines, by artificial intelligence, because I don't feel that machines can teach people to think better, to think more critically. ChatGPT is just going to be another tool that we're going to use in our classes. We own it, not the other way around. And this is the end of today's conversation. Thank you super much for being here. And can I use 2 more minutes of your time? Um, we talked about writing for students and how we can teach students to be better writers. But what do we do about teachers? Momento jabá, gente. So allow me 2 minutes. My wife and I have created a course for teachers on writing, on how teachers can become better writers. So if you click that, there is a button, like a yellow button, vixe, gente, like here, I think, like there's writing for teachers, sign up. Yep. Um, it's a course aimed at developing writing for teachers. We're going to be focusing on 4 genres that we believe are essential for teachers, which are how to write a blog post, how to write a cover letter, how to write a proposal for a teachers conference, such as BRAZ-TESOL or IATEFL or TESOL International, and how to write an article for a teachers magazine such as the beautiful, amazing new routes from Disal. If you're interested, click the link on top. If you have questions, write to me on my email. I'll send it here again, Bruno Albuquerque, ELT at gmail.com. Yeah. Should you have any questions, write to me. And and if you want the slides, write to me and I'll send you the slides. Okay? Thank you very much, everyone. I'll see you around. Bye bye.